and welcome to episode 367 of the All You Can Hear podcast. I'm your host, Piss Squid, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Dick Ass and Fuckhead.
Wow. Okay. Who's who?
I mean, I would say I would let you guys decide, but I think Colt is clearly Dick Ass and Tanner's Fuckhead.
That's also what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm the evolution of Dick Butt. Anybody remember Dick Butt?
Now I'm just imagining like a Digimon animation sequence of like Dick Butt, Digivolve 2, Dick Ass. And then
Wait a minute, that was really good. That's we need somebody to hop on that. Animators listening, animate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if animators that worked on Uzumaki, just animate that real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 600 people that worked on Uzumaki went through so many. Hey, we're here today to talk about Uzumaki.
Oh yeah, my name's Colt. By the way, my name's not Dick Ass. My name is.
I'm not.
I'm just, we haven't said our name.
I know.
Tanner hasn't either.
It's episode 367.
Hey.
I just want to make sure I'm not Piss Squid. I'm Wenzel.
Also, okay. I need to commission you, Wenzel. I need you to draw something for me.
Okay.
It's a circle, but it goes infinitely in on itself.
So a spiral?
Yeah.
You know, the Japanese word for spiral is Uzumaki.
Believe
Naruto?
it.
Yep, Naruto. That would be so fun. That would be such a great bit if Wenzel's like, yeah, you know, it's $100 for a commission. And Colt was like, no, I just need a spiral for the bit. And Wenzel was like, yeah, $100 for the commission.
I mean, $100 for the commission, Colt.
I don't have that.
Then you're not gonna get it. So I don't know why you would ask me that on
Colt,
here and embarrass yourself like this.
Colt needs to be the people that like hop into like artist DMs and be like, oh, what? I can't get it for free.
Wow. Okay.
Man.
Yeah. So if you couldn't tell, we're gonna talk about the 4-part episode miniseries. 4-episode miniseries Uzumaki that just recently, as of recording, the last episode came out Saturday and then officially released on the Max app today, Sunday. And yeah, we watched all 4 episodes and we're gonna talk about them. Did I say it was on Adult Swim? It was on Adult Swim. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Also, spoilers ahead.
Yeah, spoilers ahead for the show, and then for the manga as well. I guess I should get into some details.
Also, One Piece chapter 1130 spoilers.
I'm behind like 3 chapters.
Oh fuck, Colt! Oh man, it's so good. Okay, we're not talking about One Piece then.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So it's a black and white adaptation of the famous horror manga Uzumaki, written and illustrated by Junji Ito. This is originally published between 1998 and 1999 with multiple volumes and copies published along with the well-known hardcover omnibus edition being published in October 2013, which is the edition that I currently have and I read last year on my flight back from the Philippines. There was a live action film that released on February 11th, 2000 that contains a different ending from the manga because it was produced before the official ending was released.
That's crazy.
Did not know that.
I did not know that. Now I'm like, I mean, we kind of have to watch that.
I've always wanted to watch it because I hear it's like it's just a weird like thing to watch. Like it's just a fun time. And then the official Japanese sub of Uzumaki premiered on September 28th. So, yeah, you know, I'm trying to think of how to do this because, like, this is going to be different from our usual discussion and review, just because it's like there's like so much going into this of like, because if nobody knows, the first episode premiered with such high praise because the animation quality was very good. It had two very iconic moments that everybody has, if they've seen Judge Ito or they've seen manga through pop culture, they know. And then episode 2 rolls around and it becomes its own like meme or pop culture moment with like just being just horrendous in terms of quality. So to give you like how should I do this?
I was going to mention too, and like the big thing with this is that Junji Ito obviously is like one of the most like famous, mangaka, graphic novel artists, writers ever.
Specifically horror.
Yeah, specifically in horror. However, I would say every anime adaptation of a Junji Ito work just does not hold a candle to the original. Like there's always a weird production issue. It always gets stuck in developmental hell, which Uzumaki did as well. So when Uzumaki episode 1 comes out, it's like, oh shit, like they did it. They did it. It's finally there's something here, like good animation, good sound design. The art is obviously fucking amazing. I think the black and white like style choice was a fantastic choice for the anime. And then episode 2 rolls around and it's literally like it was like they somehow lost the final version and they had to submit like 6 rough drafts ago version of like the animation is like some of the actual worst I've ever seen. There's actually incomplete drawings in episode 2, and then like after episode 1 the quality is just so up and down. Like it, like for a 4 episode miniseries, it is just all over the place. So in Junji Ito's own way, his curse continues where like his anime just can't get, or his manga just can't get like a proper fine adaptation. Like there's always some weird shit going on with it.
In the second episode, there was like no, it's not just the second episode. There's so many animation inconsistencies.
Yes.
In 2, 3, and some 4.
Yep.
Also, like with it's not like his work is impossible to adapt. I feel like the first episode proved that his work can be adapted, and it can be adapted pretty damn faithfully.
Yep.
It's just that stuff behind the scenes really just sabotaged, and it sucks because the first episode was so beautiful, and that's why for the last 5 years we've been seeing the same trailer basically over and over again because it's all stuff from the first episode, and they don't want to show us anything else.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess to go into the background then, so which both of you pretty much like, thank you for the segue. So 2019 was the original announcement year of the anime adaptation, with Hiroshi Nagahama being announced as series director and Colin Stetson composing the music. I had forgotten Stetson would be doing the music. He's done the music for Hereditary. I think Midsummer as well. Yeah. Dude's fantastic. He composes these very eerie, creepy, ethereal pieces, and for him to be a part of this project, it fits. I will say the music was always good.
The music's great.
Yeah,
the music never changes.
Yes, that's the one consistent thing throughout. The sound design and the actual like OST of the series is phenomenal. Like I almost want to recommend it on the strength of its soundtrack alone, because it really does like get you in that Halloween mood spirit.
The intro, whenever they're unspiraling the title card, is really cool with the music playing. It's very well done.
Yeah, and it's like actually creepy too. Like usually, I've said my thoughts on horror things on this show for years, and usually something like sound design and music doesn't like get me, but like I was watching it with like, it was dark outside and I had all the lights downstairs off, and it started. I was like, ooh, this is actually a little creepy. I was like, I'm a little spooked. So I don't like, huge props.
It was so funny because when I was watching this stuff last night, I had all my lights off and my the volume on my TV is like just loud enough that you can hear it through the door. And there's like so many episodes, specifically I want to say 3 has so much screaming in it. At some point my dad comes in and he's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "It's for the podcast, Dad. It's for the podcast."
Yeah, you can get away with anything just saying that.
And then whenever I was done, he's like, "So you done watching stuff for the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." "You're gonna go to bed?" "Yeah." So the animation studio Drive was originally announced to be the animation studio producing, but then upon official release, Drive is nowhere in the credits. Should say that. One of the producers, though, from Drive is still in the credits. It's just the animation studio isn't. So that's a big red flag. During the height of the pandemic in 2020, creative director Jason DeMarco, who, if anybody follows on Twitter, pretty famous, had stated that the pandemic had no impact on production. Junji Ito himself had seen the screenplay at the time and liked it. In the summer of 2020, it was announced to be moved back a year from its original 2020 planned release, which is kind of insane looking back on it. It's like, damn, 2020. Like, and then in 2021, Nagahama stated that the pandemic forced them to restructure their plan for the anime from scratch, and the anime would be delayed to October 2022. Again, another red flag. In June 2022, the anime was indefinitely delayed at the request of the production staff. In 2023, Ari Aster and Lars Knudson's company Square Peg was revealed to be involved with producing the series. Also in 2023, DeMarco stated that the series would would premiere later in 2023. It did not.
Now, if you are aware about anything Adult Swim, you're probably aware of Jason. He is a huge reason why anime is so popular in the West. He is literally one of the heads behind Toonami. So he is a big name in the anime world in the West, at least. So he has a lot of pull when it comes to some of these people, obviously because of all these fucking names that appear here. But like, I will say, for a man that talks a lot of shit on some pretty decent things, he has made some subpar choices for his creative works.
Especially lately. Like, again, like, not to harp on it too much, because like I don't think you can put the failings of this series on
Oh, no.
And for somebody that's probably directly responsible for all three of us being into anime, the Toonami, like we've talked about it's a huge part of our childhood and continues to be. But it's wild to me how inconsistent the messaging was around this. So I had forgotten that that we saw, or like the first announcement for this was made before COVID, 2019. Like,
and I was excited as hell. Like, this Colin Stetson's doing the music. Oh my god, it was a huge deal.
Like, just for reference, like I believe this was announced around the time I met Riley, who is currently my wife, and we have lived together for 3.5 years. That is how much time has passed to make this show. And then for it to come out in this state, like, just so, because it's not even that it's all bad, it's just so wildly inconsistent. Like, I've never seen a show like it that's so wildly inconsistent. And like it's only 4 episodes, like it's 100 minutes long. Like, I'm just, it's so weird about like, oh, it's not COVID, oh, but it was COVID. Like, okay, like I fully understand that the pandemic definitely like shut down some processes for sure, but can you really be blaming like this on COVID? Like it's almost 2025. Like, and we're finally seeing it. Like, can it? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of stuff. I feel like we'll get more information now that the series is like over and people will be willing to talk about it. That worked on it, but holy shit, like it's actually kind of insane how this
came
out.
Yeah, agreed. Because when I was putting this stuff together, it's just like so much, just like you said, inconsistency, just red flags of announcements. And now DeMarco did put out some statements on uh Twitter or Blue Sky. I not sure, but it doesn't matter because he has since deleted those tweets. But of course news outlets were able to get those before he did that. So creator producer DeMarco says the drop in animation quality is because they got screwed over, quote unquote, during production. And was quoted, the options were A, not finish it, air nothing, and call it a loss. B, just finish episode 1 and leave it incomplete. Or C, run all 4, warts and all. And then after that, he says, after waiting so long, it makes sense people would be mad. Unfortunately, I can't tell them who to blame it on, but someone is definitely at fault here. We all just had to do our best when things imploded.
Now, okay, so it's Warner Brothers.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be. They pulled fund. I mean, I'm not shocked that funding was probably pulled from this because they were like, you've been working on this for how long? And it's going to air at 12:30 a.m. on Adult Swim, and we've spent how much money on this? So I mean, I can see that. So again, I don't even want to put all of the blame on that, even though, because again, like, studios change hands between episodes, and I think every episode had different directors. So like, it's bizarre.
I think honestly they should have gone with choice B. They should have finished episode 1 and left it incomplete. Aired episode 1 and just to see how the response was, and to see if a certain amount of people, maybe the fucking studio heads, maybe Warner Brothers, be like, oh, I guess people do love this anime child crap, so I guess we'll fund the rest. Because the episode 1 was so fucking well done. I can't get over the scene where they're walking by the little canal and the water has these little whirlpools. That scene is like one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire first episode, entire series. It's so disappointing. They should have just animated episode 1, because it's like they did the same thing with Smiling Friends. They animated the pilot, aired it, saw the reception, have a first season. Now they're fucking working on more.
Well, same thing with Rick and Morty.
Yep.
I mean, I saw the Rick and Morty just got renewed for seasons 11 and 12. Like, and I think season 7 is the most recently aired season. So like, I mean, there's obviously a craving for adult animation. I actually,
but the studio execs don't see it. They just think it's for children.
Yeah, they think it's for kids. Because I think I agree with Colt, because my thing with Uzumaki, as somebody that's never read it, you get your iconic moments that people associate with Uzumaki in episode 1, specifically like the spiral in the girl's head where you can see her whole eyeball. Like, that to me is like the iconic image from Uzumaki. You could almost just air that as a standalone and people would be like, wow, that was incredible. Like, that's Uzumaki. Because I imagine, like, you're not just trying to appeal to people that's read it, but I imagine you would have got people that's read it, like you two, been like, wow, that was...
I haven't read it.
Oh, okay. Well, just Wenzel's read it. Okay, I thought you had read it, Colt. But anyways, you get people like Wenzel that'd be like, wow, that's phenomenal. That'd be so cool if they did the rest in this style. And then you get people like me and Colt who hasn't read it that's like, man, that was fucking awesome. And like, just, you can leave it at that. So it is kind of mind-boggling, even if like the show did kind of clean up at the end. Like, it is kind of mind-boggling that instead of just airing, like, in my opinion, a near perfect episode 1, you're like, we're going to air episode 1, but we're also going to air these essentially like rough cuts of the remaining episodes. And I hope it doesn't kill our goodwill. Like,
that's one thing that fucking hurts so much, is that the second and third episode, in my opinion, were so fucking dog shit that it's going to tarnish the name or tarnish the first episode, and people are just going to like lump it in. Oh, it's the shitty adaptation. Which, to be fair, it's not the great adaptation. But the first episode was so damn good, it could still be plucked from this batch of dog doo doo and made beautiful if it was a standalone.
Yeah, but no, I completely agree.
Yeah, like you guys said, B would have been a good option just because there's that potential there of like, attention, of funding and the stuff. And also too, like when it was announced to be a 4-part or 4-episode miniseries, it's like, okay, it's a
Make
thick
a movie.
it's a thick omnibus, but then like I thought about it, or at first I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But then thinking about it later, I was like, oh, well, that really only works if every episode is like an hour, maybe. Every episode is not an hour. Every episode is like anywhere from 30 to 24 minutes, 24 to 30 minutes. And so now, like, having known that, and it's just like, that's really weird they did it like that, because like you said, with that iconic scene of the girl having her eyeballs spiraling, Uzumaki, for most of it, is kind of just a collection of tales happening in this town until it eventually, like the threads of some of things like start to come together, and like they kind of build and build and build into like this, like until the finale, basically, until this at certain point there's like a point of no return, where it's just like it all is led to here, and like there's stuff coming back later that's used in the story. And so like for it to be just a 4-episode, it doesn't make any sense now, and that's like been my issue with it. Is that like if they would have just did that and then maybe got some better attention, some better like, hey, people want this, then they could sorry, but restructured it again to where it can be a longer season with like each episode being like it's like containing a tale, and then eventually the last episodes build into the finale. Like that's what I wish they would have done, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say like it like just read it. Like if you can get your hands on the omnibus, just read it. It's fantastic.
The omnibus is in every Barnes and Noble in the fucking country. So
and it's never out of stock, even though people are buying it. Like it's not like it's not selling. It's selling. It's just that it's so good that they keep printing it. And I need to collect Junji Ito stuff. I only have one Junji Ito thing, and it's like not one of his popular things. It was like $5 on a Black Friday online, and I was like, fuck it, I'll pick it up. I need to pick up more because they're hardcovers and they're genuinely beautiful spines and beautiful art too.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a little Junji Ito around because he's beautiful.
Well, yeah, like I know, I think like I don't think this will hurt, reading it or anything, but like
no.
Also too, I like seriously, like check out his work. It sucks. Not his work. It sucks that Uzumaki, the show, is like this, but that does nothing to tarnish his current work and him as a mangaka. So go check out his stuff.
I will say, as somebody that hasn't read Uzumaki and hasn't read much Junji, I mean, obviously I'm familiar with a lot of the stuff, but I haven't read a ton of it. I'm more interested now in going and reading Uzumaki after watching the show, because you can see the good pieces that are in the show. Such as episode 1, and there is stuff in every episode I think that is good, but like episode 1 in particular, like is what kind of made me go like, oh man, like I kind of just need to read this, huh? Because like by the time I watched episode 1, episode 2 and 3 were already out, so like I had heard that like, oh hey guys, it got doo-doo, and it did. I want to talk about to Wenzel's and Colt's point, saying they need to go back to the drawing board to restructure it. After watching specifically episode 3, it feels like there was points in episode 3 that like it feels like there was whole scenes cut out of episode 3, because like they'd be like, oh, we're in the hospital and there's these pregnant, like bloodlusting women. And then it just would cut. And then it's like, oh, there's this creep looking in our house. And it's like, how the fuck did you get, what happened? How, like, it feels like the whole scene, like whole scenes were missing.
Okay. I see what you're saying now I see what you're saying now. When previously, before we started this podcast, they were saying episode 3 was their least favorite, and honestly, like, because I've read it and because I've watched it like all within like the same amount of time, not the same amount of time. I watched it last night and then I went through the manga last night as well to see like if I was right about certain things. They're kind of like all forming together. I see what you're saying now, and that was also one of the reasons why I have a huge problem with the show in general, was the like going back to the drawing board, because the screenplay, I want to know what Ito read, because the screenplay that we have is so just not incohesive. Just it makes it makes no sense. And I was watching it, I was like this is so bad. I'm like, why would they put it together like this? Like I said, I'm like they should have, like, they're putting all these they're cramming all this shit in such a short amount of time that it just won't make sense to anybody watching it, and it bums me out, because when you read it, it makes so much sense when it's read, but like in the show, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, like I was watching it. I watched episode 3 on Friday, and I'm watching it, and like literally, it goes from like that scene to the next scene, and I go, oh, did like Max glitch out or something? Did it like skip? Because Max is not the best app. And I rewound it, and I'm like, oh, this is just the show. Like, what? Like, it made no sense. And not only that, that's not even the only time it happens in episode 3. Shit like that happens like 4 times in episode 3, which is why I think episode 3 is far and away the worst episode, because it feels like chunks of different episodes. It feels like it's so wild. It's almost like this was going to be a 5-episode series, and then they had to condense it to 4, but then stuff from episodes 2, 3, and 4 all made its way into episode 3 in a random fucking order. And it just made no sense. Like, it's so... Oh my god, it's so bad. It's so bad. And like the animation in episode 3 is honestly a little cleaned up from episode 2, because episode 2 had awful animation. I didn't notice it as much in episode 3, but the pacing issues of episode 3, I would watch episode 2 100 times before I watched episode 3 again, personally. And episode 2 is not great. Episode 2 also has pacing issues. It's just not as, the whole show has pacing issues, honestly, just because it's condensed so much. But the I guess storyboard editing is what, like, it's like shit got cut off on the cutting room floor that was necessary to understand it and to make the show flow as a unit, and it's just not there. It's just gone.
Was the guy that was turning into a snail the first time. What episode was that? That's 2 or 1. I enjoyed that. 2. That was the only part of episode 2 that I enjoyed. I thought the lighthouse part was just like, to be honest, I was falling asleep and I had to pause.
I
had to pause, and I took probably like a 2-hour break. That's why it took me fucking forever. Probably took me 5 hours to watch 3 episodes, which would have taken 1 hour. It was it was rough. I immediately started episode 2 after I finished 1 because I loved 1.
Yep. Same Colt, same exact thing. I watched episode 1. I'm like, I was like, episode 2 can't be that bad. And then I watched episode 2, and literally the lighthouse part, I'm like, oh, this is a slideshow. I was like, this is Blue Lock. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, it's so, oh my god. It was like some of the worst. I'm like, there's money behind this show. And I'm like, this is just egregious. I'm like, this is like actively embarrassing how bad it was.
All right. So something I want to do for us is I was going to take us through the plot, but as I'm doing this, that's where we can kind of talk. I'm going to go through they have a plot summary here on the Wikipedia for the manga, and I'm just going to use that because it's actually is actually pretty good. They have plot summaries for 2 of the episodes on here, but they're so fucking long. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to go through what we have here for the manga, and then I thought we could like kind of have our thoughts and stuff and go through it like that, because it progresses. Whoever made this plot summary did a good job and predicted. Maybe this is for the anime. Maybe they predicted the anime plot, but
skip anything that's not in the anime. Fuck it. It's not in the anime. We don't know it.
All right. So Uzumaki follows a high school teenager, Kiri Goshima, and her boyfriend, Suichi Sato, and the citizens of the small, quiet Japanese town, Kurozucho, which also translates to Black Vortex Town. That's pretty crazy. Which is enveloped by supernatural events involving spirals. As the story progresses, Kiri and Suichi witness how the spiral curse affects the people around them, causing the citizens to become more obsessed with or paranoid about spirals. Suichi becomes reclusive after both of his parents die from horrific psychological and physical powers of the spirals, but also gains the ability to detect when the spiral curse is taking place, although he is often dismissed until the next paranormal effects of the curse become obvious. The first episode, like we said, has 2 of the most iconic Uzumaki imagery. It has the girl with the her eyeball and the spiral black hole basically in her head. The other one being his Suichi's father putting himself in not a bathtub, but like
it's like a basket thing.
like a water basin basket.
Yeah.
And himself turning into a spiral, and he is a device that's used throughout the story because he affects both Suichi and his mother, leading his mother to insanity and eventually killing herself. For the most part, for episode, it moves really fast, which is my problem with the episode. Even though it's like really fucking good, it crams these stories like with them, like it just moves really fast, and it's fine. But yeah, what else happened in that episode?
I think that's my only problem with episode 1 as well, is that it goes at a breakneck pace, and like this is like, I feel like if there's one genre you don't want to do that with, typically it's horror. Like I feel like horror is about not necessarily the long game, but it's definitely like,
nice pacing,
a nice pacing, a slower burn, if you will. And like Shuichi's dad, like it literally, like one scene he goes to the girl's dad and was like, "Can you make me the spiral vase?" And then the next scene he's like, "I'm obsessed with spirals." And then the next scene he killed himself because he turned himself into a spiral, into a basket. And like all of that happens within the first like 6 minutes of the episode. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, we're really moving here. And like, even as somebody that hasn't read Uzumaki, I'm like, this is going extremely fast. And like a lot of the criticism I saw about episode 1 online was that it wasn't really giving its moments time to breathe, which I 100% agree with.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is like it was moving so fast, and like now the scenes with like his father and the girl were crazy, especially when the girl finally like collapses in on herself. It like that was crazy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't in the manga, reading it builds up more nicely. There's a lot more suspense into the whole theory of like there's something up with spirals, what's going on. Suichi has this weird feeling. It builds up more, and with this it's just moving so fucking fast. It makes sense now looking back on it, because 4 fucking episodes and every episode is so short. And then eventually Kiri is affected by the curse as well, when her hair begins to curl into an unnatural spiral pattern, drains her life energy to hypnotize the citizens, and chokes her whenever she attempts to cut it off.
Now this is episode 2.
This is episode 2.
Yeah.
Suichi is able to cut her hair and save her. This episode is when they introduce her problems with her hair. They introduce the snail people problem, which is so weird, because in the manga they introduce the snail person problem way later. Because at the time, whenever whenever there's a scene where she waters the kid, one of the snail kids, because she feels bad for him. But she has her long curling hair. In the manga, she already has her short hair. This doesn't happen till way later. And that's what felt so weird for me, because like the whole snail person problem kind of like it builds, because they put in a lot of like exposition of like this kid is acting really weird, he's really slimy, he's he barely comes to he only comes to school when it's raining, what's going on. So they kind of just throw that all in there, and I mean it makes sense for when you get to episode 4 and what happens, but it's very, I personally, that again, didn't like that because of that, because what was happening. There's also the storyline with the two kids wanting to escape the town, but because the spiral is affecting their families, it's making them very abusive and crazy towards their relationship. Again, there was context for that wasn't put in there that I really don't like, because it was effective. I'm glad it was effective when they showed the two snakes intertwined. So it's fine, but I don't know. For me, whenever it shows them twisting together, it's like I was just like, well, it doesn't show that. Originally in the manga, it shows the boy having been pushed to the ground, like very previously by like his girlfriend's family. He starts to twist, and Kiri is like really shocked by this. It's like, what's going on? And it's just like a kind of like a hint of that, like something's going to happen later, and it's kind of like that provoking his girlfriend into doing the same thing with him, that they twist into this this twisted human spiral entity that crawls into the fucking ocean. Which I wish the animation was better for that, because that's so freaking cool. This is also too where you see a lot of that animation budget come into play. They put a ton of money into them running across the beach. If nobody knows.
Oh yeah, they're trucking, and then they got the back shot stairs. Thought that was fun.
Also too, immediately that the budget for this episode was so bad, because literally as soon as the episode starts, the classroom, there's two classroom shots. There's one that you see in episode 1, and then it's like basically the same shot in episode 2, but in episode 2 it's just almost CG, and it looks so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Whoever did the background art for episode 1, fantastic people, great job. It feels like they got AI to do every single background from here on, and it feels awful. It feels like dog shit.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It feels like even the movement feels like it doesn't feel like properly animated. It's like
so bad.
Obviously there's like CG in the show, like even in episode 1, like there's CG involved, but it definitely I mean it almost feels like, especially when the kid turns into a snail and he's on the side of the school, I could almost see the mouse cursor like dragging the kid to another window of the building. I'm like, that's not how things move.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the animation style is that in the first episode, it is CG, but there's also rotoscoping used as well.
Yeah.
And it's done with also like with 2D elements. So it looks like you're ripping Junji Ito's art out straight out of the manga. It's perfect. But then you get to episode 2, and like they said, it just looks so fucking bad. And not only do they fuck up the movements, they also fuck up the facial expressions somehow. There are so many different shots where their faces are different art styles. And not only that, there's a scene where Kiri is being told something horrific, and for some reason she's fucking smiling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen. Like that's not how she feels in that moment. That's like a little nitpicky thing, but it's just still, it took me out of it. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
That was
like,
one thing about his art style is when it comes to the horror segment, the people, they don't have like normal facial expressions. They all look gaunt. They all look fucking devastated all the time, basically. And we don't get that with these models. I guess it's because it's harder to animate a fucking 3D model that's moving and you can't have a stagnant face. I don't know. That feels like a bullshit excuse. It just feels weird. They need better facial features that fit the original.
Well, Junji Ito's style is consistent, and that's what we talked about with this, is that it's inconsistent. They're jumping, and come to find out later that animation was outsourced quite a bit. But should mention episode 1's animation studio and director was animation studio was Fugaku, and then the director was Hiroshi Nagahama. But then episode 2 was Akatsuki, and the director was Yuji Moriyama. And episode 3 is also Akatsuki, but it's Shigeki Awai with Yuji Moriyama. And then episode 4, this is a big announcement too, which is so fucking funny. Fugaku and Hiroshi Nagahama return as the animation studio and director, and that was a big announcement. It was like, oh, the original animation studio and director returns for the final episode. It's like, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, I feel like the directing was better for sure. Like the flow of the story. Like I said before we started, I think episode 4 is my second favorite episode of the batch because it just it flowed better. But I will say let's say 7 minutes, the first 7 minutes of episode 4 were pretty damn awful. But I think that's because they're trying to work with whatever fucking episode 3 left them. With a stupid fucking butterfly gang. God, that was so dumb. It's not that that's dumb. It was animated and shown off horribly.
Yep.
God, okay. So episode 3, at the very end of episode 2, they go into the lighthouse, and the lighthouse, Kiri is having to chase her brother because her brother and his friends went up into this lighthouse because they're mesmerized by it, and they're trying to do like some fun little kiddie games in the lighthouse. But there's a bunch of burnt corpses and spiral symbols leading up into the lighthouse. And then you see the light, the actual light itself, and it's like melted. It's almost like its own living organism. And come to realize that the light is so fucking bright that it's burning anybody who goes into the lighthouse. So they're having to quickly run out before sundown. And one of the kids ends up dying, but they're able to get out. But it also leaves them with injuries. So that's where we lead into episode 3, where the Kiri is in the hospital now. And for most of the episode, it's just her in the hospital because because in the manga it does happen where she gets injured by the lighthouse, so she has to spend a portion in the hospital. And this is where we get the storyline with the mosquitoes, and like all the pregnant women for some reason have taken on the habits of female mosquitoes, and so at night they go to drain the blood of either mostly patients, and then they go. Then during the day they're normal. Eventually, Kiri does discover this, and when she does, her cousin's also a part of this because her cousin's pregnant. She's able to escape from them trying to drain her blood, and eventually, over time, all the women give birth, but the babies are conscious and able to communicate with each other, talking, which is really funny, but it's definitely more creepy in the manga. And also too, the diet, the food that they give the patients has these mushrooms that taste like blood, and it's come to find out that they're the placentas of the babies, because the placentas of the babies, no matter that they cut them off, they grow. They're like these they're mushrooms. They're with spirals on them. And so but the babies don't want to be born, so they communicate with each other and they talk to the doctor, and they ask the doctor to put them back in. So the doctor works to trying to put back in the babies into their mothers, and we get this really crazy scene of her cousin nude with her stomach sewed up and the baby inside, and she's attacking people to get blood. And then there's also this room full of placentas that they tried cutting, but they keep regenerating into the mushrooms. And and yeah, and then they leave the hospital.
So one thing that the show did not convey well, where Shuichi is in the hospital, because this is also the episode where his mom like officially kills herself, or does that happen at the end of 2?
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3. But Shuichi is in the hospital and they're walking by like the maternity ward. He's like, and it's just like the most bored guy going, "Hey, listen to that." And it's the babies talking like, "We have to get back at our mom." Like, and then they just kind of no-sell it. They're like, "Man, that's pretty weird, huh?" Anyways, and I'm like, "What?" Like that these newborn babies are communicating. They're like, "We don't want to be out here. This shit sucks. We want to go back in there." And they're just like, "Man, that's crazy. Somebody's gonna have to deal with that problem, huh?" Like, what are we doing?
And the thing is too is it's crazy because so she tries to tell the doctors previously about what happened, but they don't believe her. And this works in the frame that the town is going fucking crazy. So no matter what you say to anybody, like almost more than likely, unless you're somebody like Suichi or some people, they're not going to believe you because the town's fucking insane. It's reaching a point to where like in the manga, this like all this stuff that's happening, it progresses to where like crazier and crazier and crazier shit keeps happening, and it gets to the point where the town is so crazy it can't even keep up with itself. So like when you have something like this where pregnant women are killing people in the hospital to drink their blood, and then you have newborns communicating with each other and a doctor trying to stuff the newborns back into their mothers, like the town just doesn't care because it has crazy shit happening. And
it didn't even make the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, and not only that, like the doctors themselves, like whether it's the effect of the spiral or I mean it's the effect of the spiral basically, they won't say anything or do anything. It's just an insane hospital. And then I think his mom, this was the episode that his mom kills herself because she removed her fingerprints, and then she there's something else spiral related on her body that she cut off. Her hair. Her hair.
She cut her hair, and she cut like the prints on her toes off too.
Yeah, and then eventually they try to hide the fact that they're that the organ inside her ears is a spiral, but because of what's happening, she's able to convince herself to cut her ears, or to stab scissors into her ears, and eventually she kills herself.
Yep.
Which in the manga, like it progresses to it's supposed to progress to the point to where like it happens fairly over the course of the story of her going insane, and then eventually Shoichi being a fucking orphan, he kind of just moves in with Yoshima and her family. But then also too, it's so weird because they show the scene with him breaking her father's kiln to make pottery. That happens like close to the beginning of the manga, and it's so weird too because he does that towards the end of the show, and then he just moves in with them, and it's just like, okay.
Like, yeah, you burn down my fucking pottery kiln shed, move in with me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, like that doesn't make sense. But then again, I just presented the framework of the town is going crazy, everybody's going crazy, so nothing matters. But then at the same time, it's just like, well, I mean, from a writing standpoint, like that really doesn't make any sense. And that happens early on. Like, so over the course of the story, you know, because of stuff that's happening, it's like there's this relationship that's developed between her family and him and her, obviously, like to where, you know, they take him in. So yeah. So
yeah, it is so weird though, like how this show pick and chose when it wanted to cover certain elements. So like, we talked about Shuichi's mom in episode 3, and that's something that progresses through the story. She's not talked about in episode 2. Like she doesn't really come up that much. Like her stuff is in the tail end of episode 1, but like we don't really see any escalation with her in episode 2. And same thing with the snail people. Like we have a couple of the students turn into snails in episode 2. That shit is just not mentioned in episode 3, but it is a crucial plot point in episode 4 that like it just almost seems forgotten about in episode 3. They're like, man, that was crazy when our classmates turned into snails. Anyways,
well, it's only almost forgotten about is because later, their teacher comes to school and now he's a snail person.
yeah, but was that not in episode 2?
I don't know.
I thought that was at the tail end of episode 2, like after the guy that bullied the original snail person turned into a snail, and then the teacher came to school as a snail.
Maybe, because I remember him crushing the eggs. Yes,
I think it was the same episode too.
Because they were running. Were they running after the 2 kids?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay, you're right.
Man,
so I think that might have either been at the tail end of episode 2, or it might have happened right at the beginning, or close to the beginning of episode 3. Yeah, something like that.
it's just so weird. It's like they forgot, not that they forgot about, but like putting yourself in this framework of like, because if you've ever seen the Uzumaki omnibus, and I imagine most people listening to this have at least seen that, it's a thick omnibus. It's not thin by any means. And to condense it into 4 half-hour long episodes is an insane undertaking anyways, but there's so much missing that even somebody that hasn't read it like myself, there's so much context missing for things, and then there's just complete plot points that aren't touched on again until right towards the end. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, you're right though about the snail people, because like I said, the snail person problem doesn't happen until towards the end. Again, with the women in the hospital. That's because, again, the craziest shit starts to happen towards the end, building up. And the reason why is because it's building up to the typhoon problem. Because once the typhoons hit and destroys the town, like that's the point of no return, basically. But before that, the shit with the women, the snail people, like that's like the craziest stuff to happen. And it happens like for a reason. Especially with the snail people, because again, it's the craziest shit. Like, you think people turning to snails, that's a huge problem. But like it's never really explored like it is in the manga until episode 4, when people have run out of food, so they need a new food source, so they start killing and eating people who are turning into snails.
Who are the snails? Yeah. Which also something I wanted to touch on. It has nothing to do with Uzumaki. Well, it kind of does. Y'all remember the episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob accidentally essentially Gary is sick and SpongeBob gets a shot and he turns into a snail?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonder if that was inspired by this.
Well, maybe Bikini Bottom's inflicted by the spiral.
And Wenzel, I know what you were about to say. You were about to say that episode would have came out before this. That would have been a late '99 episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when Uzumaki was.
Oh, wow, maybe. Yeah.
Just something I thought, because it seems too weird to be a coincidence. Like, both of these things had people turning into snails in the late 90s.
And we had some mega weebs at Nickelodeon for some reason.
I could see it. I could definitely see that. I mean, Junji Ito was already a pretty popular name to weebs in the late 90s.
No. I don't think so. I mean, if they're Japanese, yeah, but I'm not American.
I'm talking hardcore weebs. I don't
think so.
I'm trying to see when the first Junji Ito.
Because I want to say Junji Ito had already made a name for himself before Uzumaki.
Yeah, like, so.
But we didn't see like a lot of his stuff in the West for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not talking about it was widely known. I'm just saying somebody in animation could have definitely been aware of Junji Ito and that sort of work. I mean, you don't think people were like reading and buying Shonen Jump in the late 90s?
Not many Americans.
No, I mean, you don't think adults who are interested in art would?
I mean, sure, yeah. Like there could have been one of the
Okay, we're talking about the people who made SpongeBob. So we're saying like these are adults who are very aware of the wider world and comics and art and stuff. More than likely, they would have seen some of this stuff.
Dude,
Sure.
why the fuck was I put in SpongeBob, the first Google thing was SpongeBob Junji Ito. I'm not even bullshitting you.
Fuck, that's awesome.
What does that pull up? Is there something else?
So, official SpongeBob SquarePants account posted this reference to Junji Ito's Uzumaki a couple of days ago. Coincidentally, both series have people turn into snails. Holy fuck.
Is there a JoJo's one?
The guys making SpongeBob are definitely Ito fans. You got the scary snail episode, and there is a moment where Plankton literally runs down the spiral staircase from Uzumaki. It has the spiral city and everything. Interesting.
Another funny thing is snails, people turning into snails pops up in JoJo Part 6.
Okay, well, we're not talking about JoJo's Part 6. We're talking about...
Yeah, we're not talking about that weeb stuff. We're talking about SpongeBob.
Yeah.
That's the art that the official SpongeBob account posted. Also, this was a post from 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So...
But anyway, I mean, they could have been fans of the manga.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that too hard for you to believe, Colt?
No, I mean, technically, Jimmy Carter could be a huge Gundam fan. He existed around the time that Gundam was popping off.
Well, one of his major policies was he wanted an RX-78 in the White House.
Yeah, he did say that.
He did say that, yeah.
I mean, that's part of.
And then he put a ban on Zaku's.
I mean, good. Fucking Char's a terrorist.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So then episode 4 goes into like I said before, the typhoon weather event where the town is plagued by a series of typhoons conjured by the curse, and it destroys most of its buildings. The only remaining buildings are an ancient abandoned terraced houses, which the citizens are forced to move into, and they begin expanding as they grow more and more crowded. And then so this episode starts with a news crew trying to go into the town, but they can't get into the town. Everybody who tries to get into town, including volunteers, other news crews and stuff, their vehicles are destroyed, and they either end up getting stuck in the town itself or they die. For this one, it's 3 people, but 2 of the people die, and the only one left is the reporter. So she goes in the town where she meets Kiri and her brother. And
barely any reaction to death, by the way. That was one thing that bothered me. Like, she's like, "Oh, I gotta go get help."
Yep, part of the job.
I
mean, to be fair, like, bruh. Come on.
Yeah, bruh. Yeah, you know what? I should say that if I kill someone, I'll be like, to be fair, bruh.
That was probably the subtext that they were going for with the series. They were like, well, you know how Gen Z doesn't react to anything anymore. They would probably be like, what the Sigma?
On Skibbity, on Yacht.
On Yacht. This shit is crazy. They should have stuck that in there, full English.
And yeah, so then it is revealed to the reporter that if they move too fast, create too loud of a sound, speak very loudly, it creates whirlwinds. And there's a part in there where the reporter's breathing and her breath is like little spirals. It's really cool, a really cool effect. That was really hoping to be better shown. No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of only shown that one time, and it's like, oh, okay. And I should say, episode 4 is a massive improvement on the animation from 2 and 3. It's still not what I would call like great by any means, but it is perfectly passable.
Oh yeah,
like if the whole show would have been the quality of episode 4, even. I feel like people would have came away from this being like, oh, that was fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I should say too, because I know Colt mentioned this earlier about the Butterfly Gang. The Butterfly Gang, without the context kind of that it needs, seems really fucking stupid. watching it, but I remember reading it being like, what the fuck? And then still being like, what the hell? Like, but like, so in the manga, whenever all the houses are destroyed and people are having to basically like, this is like, it's almost post-apocalyptic. It's like a disaster happened, so now people are trying to scrounge and fend for themselves. And also to what makes this like the reason why what makes it so tough too is that the spiral town is located on a coast, but it's surrounded by mountains, so it's like perfectly cut off like land wise from anything else. So that's why nobody can get in either from sea or from land because of that. And if anybody does try to come from sea, a whirlpool opens up and destroys everything, which there are even military ships that come in, but then they're destroyed. But what happens in the manga is that there's these kids that are going around town and just killing people. Basically, they're just throwing whirlwinds at them, and so people try to fight back at these kids. And over time, what happens is the Butterfly Gang is created to fight against the kids, because there's a scene in the anime where the Butterfly Gang is seen attacking an elementary school. The reason why they're doing that is because they're fighting against the kids.
Wow, yeah. There was no context for that. It's because it's so crazy. Like the girl's younger brother, it's like, oh man, they're so cool, and I'm like, they're doing terrorism to a elementary school.
Yeah,
no contact. Okay, that okay. Yeah, I feel like you should just cut that scene out without the context.
I was whenever they pop up and they're attacking, I'm like, this will look so stupid to anybody watching.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did.
And also too, the animation for it was really bad.
Oh yeah. I think one of you mentioned it earlier. The first 5 or 6 minutes of episode 4 was definitely like something. It almost makes me think it was the beginning of episode 4 was supposed to be at the end of episode 3, which is why episode 4 is randomly 10 minutes longer than the other 3 episodes. So I could definitely see like the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of episode 3 still being done by the same group that did episode 3, and then the rest of episode 4 being done by the actual like credited studio for episode 4. I could definitely see that possibility.
Yeah, because it would have made much more sense to like go into like the aftermath of the typhoons. Now there is this bit in episode 3 where one of the typhoons is like very like focused on Kiri, and like we get this whole we get that whole scene or that whole situation where they're having to run for cover from the storm, and I think it was you guys said like what happened here, like why was this transit. Oh fuck, we didn't even talk about episode that part of episode 3 where they go from being in the hospital to the storm, and you're right, like it's just a weird cut of like, oh yeah, like now we're trying to reinforce the house, like the whole typhoon situation. And then after everybody's houses get destroyed, they move into the terrace houses, and then there's the weird monster guy with the spiral warts that are growing out of his body, which that also looked really bad. Who he ends up getting killed. But then this is also really weird. I completely forgot about this, is whenever the storm is happening and they're in the old abandoned houses, and the monster dies, the kid that was killed, I think in was it episode 1 or 2? I think it was 2, who like it was 2. He's like in love with Kiri, and they call him Jack in the Box.
Fuck, that was so funny. I was laughing because it was so stupid.
So stupid. and the way he gets crushed by the wheel, insane. Like the sound, it literally sounds like somebody went up to the mic in the sound booth and was like, all right, we're giving you tinfoil and paper, make your sound. It was crazy.
And in this episode, or in episode 3, whenever the storm's happening, the kid, Jack in the Box kid, is seen jumping on a spring and he's a corpse, and he's like jumping towards Kiri, and she's like, oh shit, like he's back, what's going on? But then his body kind of just not disintegrates, but it falls apart, and a spring flies out, and Shuichi's like, that looks like a spring from a car. And then that's it.
Yeah, like why does that matter?
So
like Shuichi had a mansplain. Well, that's obviously not a real. That's something from a car, obviously. Like who fucking cares?
Don't forget that the Jack in the Box guy went. Wah! He himself made a noise before he fell apart.
Yeah.
The thing is that scene right there. I'm fairly certain I looked at this. That didn't happen. In the manga, what happens is, so this is like its own like story, is Jack in the Box kid again keeps antagonizing Kiri, is like, oh, fall in love with me, and he dies. But then later like weird shit's happening, whatever, blah 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 blah, and so they go to dig up his grave, and when they dig up his grave, his body flies out, and it's like stitched back together, of course, because whenever they took him out of the car wheel, they had to repair his body so they could put him in the coffin or whatever, have a complete corpse. And there's all this like weird stuff happening. Like you're kind of given this idea that that like his corpse is reanimating, he's a zombie or something, but it's just this kind of weird like phenomenon where for some reason when they were putting him back together, they couldn't take the car spring out of his body, so they just left it in there. And so whenever they dig up his body starts like doing weird shit, and eventually it detaches and he starts bouncing like a Jack in the Box towards her. And so the scene of him and the car spring coming out of his body does happen. It just doesn't happen during the storm. And it's just meant to simply be like just kind of a weird, really weird phenomenon, but also definitely supernatural. But you could explain it like oh, it's just Kiri's mind playing tricks on her, but it's fucking still weird. And there was actually
so out of place in the anime. Then holy shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, that's kind of like the thing too. They tried to interconnect all of these stories together all of the time, because like on what universe, like, yeah, the storm's coming, oh, but now there's a corpse also bouncing around town that killed himself in front of her, and he's kind of a Jack in the Box sort of thing. Now he's also just bouncing around town during this high power typhoon that's destroying buildings, and I'm supposed to believe half of a human corpse isn't just going to get immediately fucking blown away. Like, why is that? Why it feels unnecessary for both of those things to happen at the same time.
Yeah, so it makes sense, like the typhoon digging up corpses out of the graves.
Sure, yeah,
because they're burying people, but it doesn't make sense in the context of like, why is he appearing in episode 3 when the show is about to end? For him to pop up, it makes sense in the manga because it's like a contained story. And then that's kind of it. Like he never appears again after that. But then when that happens, I'm just like, that's so weird. I'm like, I don't remember that happening in the manga, and it
it doesn't.
It doesn't. And yeah, but I should say, I was telling Tanya this. I didn't realize there was post-credit scenes for episode 2 and 3. The post-credit scene in episode 2 was actually his body rising out of the grave to set up for what happens in episode 3, which again, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's just so out of place.
It's a self-contained story that doesn't really have to be in there. It seems like they could have just taken that out and then put in the part with the kids causing problems for the town with whirlwinds, just to lead into the butterfly gang. Like that would have made much more sense. But for some reason they had to keep in the creepy factor of this kid coming back as a Jack in the Box. Like,
and there's really no payoff, because he's bouncing towards them, and then he again disintegrates and just kind of like falls apart, and they're like, that was crazy. And then Shuichi's like, oh, that's not a spring, that's from a car.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's literally all that happens with it. Like it's not even like a good I would argue there's not even a payoff to it. It's just a scene that is in the show.
Yeah. So that happens, and then I wish there was more kind of emphasis on this with the terrace houses, because we get the terrace houses in episode 2 with the poor with the couple and their family, and kind of the poor families living in them. There was a lot of kind of hinting at with this in the manga that that these houses are kind of important for episode 4, being that people move into them, but they're also the remnants of the houses of the houses previously, before the city became the modern city was built on top of them, basically. And so yeah, so then they're trying to going back, Kiri is trying to take this reporter to her family because she's slightly injured, but the houses are full, so they end up kicking out Kiri, her family, and Shoichi, because Shoichi's being a creepy little nerd, talking about the spiral. And then that's when we also I want to say it was either them or a different. Oh, I think it was a different thing. Sorry. So they're just trying to go around the town, trying to figure out what to do. We get some interactions with the butterfly gang. That's where we see them first eat the snail people, which is kind of the payoff here, is introducing the snail people, because then they're used by people, the butterfly gang and some other people later. They're cooked and eaten. So that's what we have happen here.
And also the butterfly gang is now the dragonfly gang because they eat meat.
Yeah.
Okay. They're like, no, we're not the butterfly gang anymore. We're the carnivorous dragonfly gang. And then one of the guys is like, and we're big dragonflies, not little dragonflies. It's like, what?
Well, I think it's trying to imply like they're gonna do something to these two women. Which okay. Yeah, so I should mention too, the reason why they're called the butterfly gang, why they're such a big problem, is because they'll create whirlwinds, and they basically use them to fly around town. And they also like kind of use them as like their powers. So like whenever the father tries to step in, he gets blown away. And then
yeah, and he's gone.
And he's gone. That's it.
That's the last time we see him.
And then so they start flying around and shit, and like, you know, the Kiri and the reporter are like gonna die, but then Shoichi comes in clutch and saves them. But the Dragonfly gang, their whirlwinds are being sucked into the to Dragonfly Pond in the center of town. Where they get sucked into this whirlpool, and then they're just killed off. They're gone. That's it.
Yep. That they are introduced and killed off legitimately in the first 6 minutes of episode 4.
And yeah, so, and that's also okay. Anyway, and Dragonfly Pond is in the center of the town. There is kind of this, they do kind of give it some importance, but not really. Dragonfly Pond is important because it's at the center of the town and everything keeps getting sucked into it. They don't really give that importance until literally this episode.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so then they try to go back to the terrace houses with a bunch of other people, but then when they try to get in, people get blown away by the whirlwinds. And it comes to find out that the people in the terrace houses are so crammed that they're starting to their bodies are starting to tangle, and they're becoming like this huge, just massive, just organism.
Yep, they're rat kinging.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Let me see here. So
I also thought it was funny in this episode where literally Shuichi, pretty much the only thing Shuichi says the whole episode is, "That's the spiral curse."
Yeah, he does.
That's all his dialogue in this episode. They're like some variation of like, "Oh, that's the spiral curse," and like every time they come across somebody, the spiral's already gotten them, and they're like, that's it.
See, and the thing is too, is in the manga, over the course of the whole fucking story, shit is happening to him. Like, I mean, the dude loses both of his parents. Weird shit keeps happening. It finally just kind of just builds and builds and finally just kind of gets to him. And so by this point, by like the point of no return where the typhoons destroy everything, he's just exhausted. He's kind of just like lost, just completely just gone almost. Or yeah. And so that makes sense. But with 4 episodes of just random shit that's just not cohesive happening, it kind of is like, dude, like, where are you? What's happened?
Yeah, exactly. Like in only 4 episodes. And I will say they did do this thing to his face, granted kind of inconsistently in the middle, but his face does, like, his eyes get like black shadows around them as the show progresses. Like, it looks different. Now I will say it's inconsistent in episodes 2 and 3, but his face is noticeably different in episode 4. Like, it's a lot more gloomy and depressed in episode 4 than it was in episode 1. So I do appreciate that, but like that just, I don't know. Like, I'm all for like, oh, the spoken subtext of like Shuichi himself spiraling over the course of this story in this town. There needs to be something more there than, yeah, it looks like he hasn't been sleeping.
Yeah. The only indication that you get really is at the close to the end of episode 3 when he attempts to eat food, but then he stops eating because one of the plates has spirals on it. So he can't eat. And that's an indication that he's losing weight or whatever. But that's it.
Yep.
That's the only time. Like, you're never really given too much. And then the passage of time too. They never give you a frank idea of how much time has passed.
No.
They do in the manga. Like, this happens over quite a bit. In here, it just seems like everything's happening within like 3 days.
Yeah, I was literally going to say it feels like 3 days. Like, you really don't get any progression of time at all until the very end of episode 4. Because at one point, Shuichi says while they're in the mountains, he goes, "Oh, it feels like time's slipping away." And then they come out of the mountains and they're like, "Whoa, all the houses have been built." And Shuichi was like, "Well, I said time was slipping away." But they didn't say how much time.
Yeah, so what happens is they try to leave town because they have no other options. It's getting crazy. And so they try to leave town, and one of the volunteers stays behind, and he's building the terrace houses because he wants to try to make shelter for the rest of the volunteers and Kiri and her friends. And so as they're leaving, you see him from the mountains building along with the bodies of the people. Like, they're becoming this very efficient organism that's also helping build. And so they're leaving, and then some of the volunteers follow them, but this is also when the volunteers have kind of gone a little crazy, and they're worried because her little brother is starting to turn to a snail. And so they're keeping one of their other volunteers on a leash because he is turning into a snail, which eventually he does, and they eat him.
Yep.
And this is a crazy scene where the lead guy crawls into the shell and eats him while he's in the shell.
Let me say, the sounds coming from that shell were fucking crazy. And also the way they explain later in the episode, they're like, "Oh, I just loved eating his sweet cheeks or his fat cheeks and his sweet face." And it's like, okay, brother, you saw he was a person.
He was a little freaky.
Yeah, he got in there. Like, they literally like grabbed him by the ankles. They were like, "Yo, get out."
But then they're like, "Let me in there, bro."
Yeah,
I like the scene that happens a little later when he wants to eat another snail. He's like it shows like a hallway for him to crawl in to eat his little buddy.
Yeah,
so that was fun.
Yeah, yeah. And then just again the sounds he was making. I mean, it's literally like, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I don't know. We haven't ate each other. Maybe we should try.
That's crazy to throw in.
Yeah.
I think it's snail. I don't think it was because he was a person.
So yeah. So eventually, though, her brother does turn to snail, but they put him on the side of a cliff so he can escape. I guess really he's the only we could say he's really the only survivor of this this series.
Yeah, I guess. But then his sister was such a dick to him. She's like, "I'm gonna smack you if you don't leave."
That
And
was
then,
just
like,
funny.
it was, yeah, it was so out of place. And then as he's crawling down, she's like, "I'll come back for you." I'm like, "Why are you being so mean to him?"
Because she doesn't want him to get killed by the hungry weirdo.
No, I get that, but she was being so mean. She was like, "Get out of here! I'm going to smack you." I'm like, he just turned into a snail. Can you give him a minute?
I like how he just goes. He's like, as she's just like poking him with a stick.
Yeah.
Oh, what else would you do as a snail?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, part of me is like, just let the people eat them.
Jesus.
It's the same conversation that people are like, "Oh, would you still love me if I was a worm?" No, you're a fucking worm.
Damn, don't turn into a worm in front of Tanner.
Yeah, don't turn into a worm in front of me.
I got some bad news for Riley.
Riley opens the door, but she's like a little worm on the ground.
Oh man, that would definitely put a damper on this weekend.
Just put her in dirt.
But then also too, Bailey, Bells, and Zelda are also worms now.
I mean, I could definitely see that happening to them.
Would you not keep Bailey, Bells, and Zelda if they were worms?
I would keep the worms. It's just not. It's just not like I would be like, I don't know, but
I love you, baby, and just make out with the worm.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
But it would be really funny though if Bells kept her personality as a worm, so at some point she would just start shaking very violently.
Yeah, there's just a worm on the couch, look like they're having a seizure because they're so excited. Yeah.
And then the volunteers, they're so crazy about eating snail people that they actually twist and die. That's not a bit.
Which is, a lot of people don't know this, happened to the French during the French Revolution.
That happened. Yep. They love escargot. So they decide they just have to go back to town, and so they go back to town, and this is where all the houses have been combined to make a spiral, which is the original design of the town that was there in ancient times. And when they get there, and there's also a really cool shot where the reporter looks at her watch, and then the watch is turning into a spiral too, to show like how much it's affecting like reality itself.
Yeah,
beyond like what's happened before, but like I mean, really. So they get there, and then the volunteer who's building everything is like significantly older, and he even says that years have passed by since they've been there. Again, the effect on time and reality. And so they have to try to make it to the to Dragonfly Pond at the center, because her parents, Kiri's parents, her mom and her dad are still alive. Apparently, they're just at the center of the town, like building like pottery or something. And so to get there though, they're trying to it's going to take a while because again the town is in a spiral, so there's only one road and it's very long. So they try to cut through one of the houses, but as they're cutting through it, everything is still being built. And then the reporter, as she's trying to cut through, it's a very slim passage. She gets trapped because they instantly build the final pieces of this continuous building. And so she gets trapped and she pretty much dies. And whenever this happens, all the people in the houses are screaming like, yes, they finally complete it. It's done. But then there's this loud shuffling, I guess if you want to call it, and then all the houses shake and then it stops, and then they open the doors and all the houses are empty now, and so they're able to cut through the middle and go directly to the pond. And this is where we see that the pond is not a pond anymore. It's completely drained, and there is a staircase in it leading down. And it's like a pit, and so as they're going down there, there is a mutated citizen who bites on Kiri's ankle or heel, and Suichi tries to fight them, but they end up getting thrown down the staircase, and so Kiri goes to chase after them. And when she does, she gets to the bottom, and we see the staircase structure itself into the going into the earth. It's like a huge, like a tower, basically. and eventually when she gets to the end, she has to kind of fall. So she falls, and she is saved by countless bodies making up the ground of a vast ancient city consisting entirely of spiral patterns in various arrangements. So the bodies are all the people that lived in the town who combined together to make this tangled organism. They're now making the floor of this area.
This is where all the work for the backgrounds in 2 and 3 went, and a bunch of 4, because I think this area is some of the best looking in the series.
Yep, 100% agree.
Because it looks super fucking cool, and just like that whole sequence down there, especially with the way it ends. I'm a big fan of that underground section.
Yep.
As Kiri looks for Shuichi, she finds her parents twisted and petrified, resembling stone statues, along with many other citizens of Kurozu who have met the same fate. Then she hears Shuichi call for her and goes to him. Both are overwhelmed by the ancient spiral surrounding them, and Shuichi points out how it seems as though the spiral ruins have a will of their own. Noticing that the petrified citizens of Kurozu are all facing the spiral city, Shuichi theorizes that this is the source of the curse. The city expands on its own periodically and has cursed the land above out of jealousy from having no one to view it. Shuichi urges Kiri to leave without him as he can no longer walk and that the curse should be over soon, but she replies that she does not have the strength and wishes to stay with him. The two embrace with their bodies twisting and intertwining together, signifying their acceptance into the never-ending curse. At the same time, a stone tower in the shape of a drill bit rises out of the city and breaches the surface, forming the centerpiece of the abandoned town. As Shuichi and Kiri lie together, Kiri notes that the curse ended at the same time it began, and for just as time speeds up away from the center, it freezes at the center. The spiral's curse is eternal, and all the events will repeat when a new Kurozu is built where the previous one lies. And that's the end. Like Colt and Tanner say, I was so anticipating the reveal of this because it was either going to look really bad or it was going to look really good. And I'm glad it looked really good, but after everything that's happened, it kind of doesn't matter. Because if nobody cares to keep up with the show, then they're not going to even make it to episode 4 to see this incredible reveal that I should say, obviously in the manga, it looks even crazier. They do put this weird fog over it in the episode that I thought was kind of distracting, but for the most part, it looked like as best as they can make it, which is majestic and creepy and just insane.
Like it's something, an alien structure, an ancient alien structure. And I think that captured it really well.
Yeah, like yep. I still think they captured it very well. It's like it's this structure that is potentially alive and is like almost also metaphysical and just affecting time, reality, the minds. Like it's this crazy just fucking thing. Like it has a form, but at the same time it's almost like incomprehensible.
Yeah, it's so crazy thinking about the show, because like as we've been talking about it, like Wenzel, you said like, oh, if people even care to make it to episode 4, I like, part of me is like, well, man, if you watched episodes 2 and 3, I feel like you owe it to yourself to watch episode 4 because it is marginally better than episode 2 and 3. And like, I'm thinking about, I don't know if you guys have a rating ready for the show. I do. My rating doesn't like, I can't in good conscience give this show a good score because because episodes 2 and 3 have so many problems. Even the beginning of episode 4 has a lot of problems. There's pacing issues in the good stuff even. So like my score for this would be like a 4.5 out of 10. Just
I was gonna say, what the fuck?
Yeah, 4.5 out of 4.5 out of 10. Just to give you a rough idea where I'm at. But part of me is like, I do think you should watch episode 1. If we're like individually rating episodes, episode 1's like a 9. I highly recommend you watch episode 1. Episode 2 and 3 are so bad. But for some reason you were like morbidly curious. You should watch it and then also watch episode 4.
Yeah,
Because-
skip 2 and 3. Just watch 1 and 4.
Honestly, sure. You can. Fuck it. Why not? There's so many pacing issues in 2 and 3. It's really not coherent from episode 3 to episode 4. So you might as well skip 2 and 3 and just go from 1 to 4. If you do that, you'll probably have a hell of a time with this show, and you'll be done with it in under an hour. So I highly recommend. But I can't recommend this show. But if you're gonna watch it, I do think you should probably see it through, just because it is so short.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to me rating it, I'm doing it out of 5, and it's very similar to Tanner's. I'm going to go 2.5. It's like I said, I can't recommend it, but if you are a fan of Junji Ito's work, you're obviously probably just going to watch the whole thing. But if you have no idea what Junji Ito does, just watch episode 1. Just watch episode 1.
So, like, a part of me wants to say, like, you know, if people watch it, maybe this will give an idea that, like, again, like pushing the idea that, like, we want animation. Animation is incredible. It's important, and it shouldn't be viewed that the way that it is by corporations, by the industry as it is. But at the same time, it's like, it's not good work. If anything, it makes a bad name for animation and what could be. So I mean, you know, it sucks. I can't really recommend it either. If I were to give it a rating out of 5, I would give a 2 out of 5. If I were to do out of 10, I would give it a 3.5 out of 10. I would say watch episode 1 just because of how good it is. Like, individual rating, like I would go 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10. But other than that, I can't recommend anything else. And it sucks too, because like I said, all these stories being put together for that final payoff at the very end with episode 4 revealing this living fucking city that is just this entity that exists. Like, I like, it's so incredible. Like, Uzumaki as a manga and as a piece of horror, it's a 10 out of 10 for me personally. I cannot recommend it enough to just read it. It's so good. But yeah, with everything that's happened, it's just so it's just tragic, really.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a shame, because you can see the potential with episode 1, and you can even see it like with, you know, most of episode 4. But man, like, that middle portion is like borderline. I mean, it's embarrassing, like, frankly. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not putting like obviously you lose funding, whatever, but like, for it to bounce between multiple studios, multiple creative directors, this project to already have been in this sort of purgatory state for about 6 years. Anyways, and then it still comes out like this, and there were better options. Again, like we said at the top of the show, I think just putting out episode 1 probably saves you money and a lot of losing goodwill, because now, I mean,
Yeah.
just think, what if they go and announce, you know, some other Junji Ito work is getting like some sort of adaptation, like specifically from Adult Swim. You know, DeMarco is like heading it. Why would I care? Like, you did this to Uzumaki, which I would probably argue is, if not his most famous work, definitely his second most famous work behind Tomy, I would say.
It's definitely his number 1.
Yeah, but I would say those are like the 2 in contention. But like, for me, I'm like, well, you've lost my trust as a viewer and as a fan, because now I'm like, are you just going to do this very haphazard, even if it's not entirely your fault, but this haphazard, embarrassing, like, adaptation of like one of the most beloved horror creators in you know, modern culture, and you produced this, like, it.
Yeah.
I would say doing something like this is almost more embarrassing than like the Cowboy Bebop live action. Like to take to take such a important piece of media and then just do like this shit to it is like, I mean, I want to say borderline criminal, and it sucks that
Yeah,
yeah.
and the thing is too is like with the live actions, there is a lot riding those in terms of money, but people typically like assume like these are going to be kind of bad, you know? With
Yeah.
Uzumaki, there was a lot of promise, like a
It's
lot.
never been animated. Live actions are the most pointless fucking media. If there's already an existing animated version of it, live actions is the most pointless thing you could ever make, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you go into those, it's like you already like there's already an expectation. With Uzumaki, there was the expectation of, oh shit, like this is getting anime treatment. There's a lot of promise. Like there's so much riding it, and then come with what we got. It's just now it's just like, oh well, fuck. You know, why do I care? Like you said, why would I care about anything you guys do from here on out? Like,
Yep.
yeah, it's terrible. And yeah.
Especially too, just because there's so many known names tied to this. Like, obviously, it's based off of Junji Ito work, but I mean, you threw out the Ari Aster's production house. I guess maybe semi-funded it or produced it or something.
Ari Aster himself funded it, and then a company, Square Peg, helped in producing as well. I mean, and those are two again big names. Colin Stetson did the music,
which like, again, the music and the sound design in the show is A+. I think if you enjoy shit like that, you will actually get some. And I did get enjoyment out of this. Like, I'm not saying like this was a waste of 106 minutes or however long it ended up being. There's good stuff in it, but like the bad is bottom of the barrel. It makes y'all remember that anime a few years ago, Zarm? I think it was what it was called, X-Arm.
Oh yeah.
I honestly, if you say it's worse than that, you're definitely wrong. You're misremembering. X-Arm is legit the worst you can get.
Yes, I agree, but it's close.
It's close.
I don't know. You haven't seen it in a bit.
In overall quality, in my head, it feels like it's close.
How often do you watch X-Arm, Colt?
I don't.
Colt's
but
weekly.
That is genuinely like it left such a mark on me that it hurts to think about it. It's like PTSD a little.
Well, it hurts.
Some of the CG in the hurts.
I mean, just the whole everything about Uzumaki hurts me.
Yeah, well, X-Arm is like getting shot with a 50 cal, and this is like getting shot with a 45.
This is like getting.
You know what? I can probably agree with that.
You're still getting shot.
I can agree with that too. Actually, I just think it's funny. I'm like, you know what? No, let's cover that 40 in like poison.
Also, you're shot in the stomach. It's not even an insta kill.
And then the guy stabs you. And then you're blown up by a tank.
Yeah, and then a shark comes and bites your leg off.
Yeah. And then X-Arms comes out and says, hey, we're making season 5.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know either.
Good lord. Well, that's Uzumaki.
Did we even bring up they had the post credits where it revealed a loop?
Oh no. Sorry. Yeah. So episode 4 had a post credit scene. This is completely new, unique to the anime. This isn't in the manga. It starts off as the exact beginning of episode 1 with 2 new characters. A character narrating literally like Kiri in the very beginning of episode 1. Character arriving at the train station, this girl's boyfriend. They're walking, talking about the spirals of the town. It's done mimicking the beginning of episode 1, and to show that the cycle of Kurozu is starting up again.
Yep,
I liked that. I thought it was really nice.
That was
cool.
That was so cool. But holy shit, it's not. It pays off for nobody because of what just fucking happened with the show.
Well, yeah, and the thing is too, like I always feel like it's unnecessary because they explain at the end that it's a cycle that always happens.
Yeah, like
or
I think,
like it's a never-ending cycle. So then them having the post-credit scene, they're like, well, in case you didn't understand, here's the cycle starting over again. Part of me honestly thinks, I know we joked about it earlier, part of me thinks they're like, well, maybe the show will get cult classic status and we can make Uzumaki 2.
But see, that wouldn't make any sense because it's so, I think the post credits is cool because while it says it's a cycle, you know, we don't know exactly like what that particularly means.
Yeah.
A cycle can be like, you know, similar things happening. This is it's almost exactly, and I say that because like the characters obviously look different, they have different names and everything, but it's like literally like reincarnation and like the same events happening, just different characters in the same positions, you know. So I think that's interesting. I think that's cool to show that. But you know, like you said, they say it's a cycle and it's just, but if they did a season 2, I mean, it doesn't matter because then it would be everything else happening over again, just different looking characters.
Yeah.
Are they going to use the same? Are they going to do the same thing? Like, it'd be so.
I mean, Wenzel, they already have most of the character movements and backgrounds done. I mean, it's just plug and play. I mean,
it really is just plug and play. Fuck.
Uzumaki season 2 coming October 2030.
Now, I will say in the manga there is a bonus chapter. It's called the Lost Chapter. That's pretty fun, but yeah, like in terms of anything like this is completely unique to the anime.
Well, hell yeah.
I also too, I want to say in episode 4, there's this shot of Kiri and Shuichi holding hands that's so fucking detailed. I don't understand. Like, I know we've talked about how inconsistent the animation is, but like again, there are these detailed, really good shots like this that I'm just like, what's going on?
Yeah. I'd be curious to know what order they like did the episodes. Like, what order were they animated? Like, did they lose funding in the middle? Did they for some reason do 1 and 4 first and lose funding after that? Did they lose funding and then got a little bit more funding towards the end, but they didn't want to go back and redo 2 and 3 because it would cost too much? It's baffling.
I think it's funny, and I think it's literally what happened was Hiroshi did episodes 1 and 4, and so that's when they had the most funding. But then, since he couldn't do episodes 2 and 3, that was up to the other guys. They didn't have their funding, so I think it's like that. Honestly, like it's literally like a progression where they put most of their funding in episode 1, partially parts of episode 4, and then after that, the quality just drops.
Yeah, and oh man, it's such a stark drop. Good lord. Whew.
All right, so
I think we talked about Uzumaki longer than the runtime of the entire show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because there's more content to us than the show.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Thank you for listening. We're the All You Can Hear podcast. So you can follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Overcast. We're on Google. We're on YouTube as well. Go check us out. Leave us a review. Give us 5 stars. Subscribe. Give us feedback. We really appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at AYCH Podcast. You can follow the Backlog Boys. You can follow Cage and Greatness. You can follow Instruction Booklet. They're all great. They're all fun time. You can follow us on Blue Sky, aychpodcast.bsky.social. You can follow us on Instagram at AYCH Podcast. You can follow us on twitch.tv/AllYouCanHear, where our VODs, including Tanner's most recent Still Wakes the Deep stream, are on our YouTube, along with our podcast episodes, along with Instruction Booklets VODs on the All You Can Hear YouTube. And we're on TikTok. Should mention that little plug there. We're at AYCH Podcasts. We currently do have our first TikTok out there where me and Colt give our quick thoughts on Smile 2. There's going to be some more TikToks coming, so keep your eyes peeled at our TikTok.
We're going to tickle your talks.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're going to tickle your talks.
I'm going to touches you. Talking to Wenzel. No one else. That's a reference. God damn it. Nobody gets my references. I'm just a baka.
Lastly, again, I don't know what's going on with that, Colt. Thank you for listening. I'm Wenzel. You can follow me on Twitter at WenzelWiki. You can follow my art Instagram, Threads, and Blue Skies, World of Wenzel. Follow my Bookstagram, Wenzel Banters, and my link tree has links for everything.
My name's Colt. Follow me on Twitter at ColtD00, Blue Sky, ColtD99. I see the horde is going over there. Do me a favor, turn into a spiral, and probably like start eating your feet.
Dang, freaky.
Not freaky. You got to eat your whole feet. No like sucking and letting go. You got to eat them.
Oh, okay. I've been Tanner. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I'm trying to post more there because now it actually seems semi-active. I'm not going 15 hours without seeing like a new thing on my feed. So follow me there, tanner1495.bsky.social. Follow me on Letterboxd, Tanner1495. Wenzel mentioned my Still Wakes to Deep VOD. Part 1 is up on YouTube right now. I'm streaming part 2 this Wednesday, October the 23rd, 7 p.m. Central over on our Twitch, twitch.tv/AYCH podcast. So yeah, tune in for that. Or if you can't tune in for that, it should be up next day on the YouTube.
Yep. So go check those out. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
You lost the plot there at the end.